Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP. Now on FM at 93.3. Come on out and join us in 5 days. Brian Kilmeade's coming to town. Brian Kilmeade? You mean the guy from Fox and Friends? Yeah, the guy from Fox and Friends. He's coming to Dallas again. And, well, technically he came to Irving last time. But it was so big, we had to move to a bigger venue. So we're going to be at Community Beer at 6 p.m. From 6 to 8, there's going to be a little show, a presentation, a broadcast. And then he's going to hang out and just chat with people. And, you know, it seems like awkward. Like, well, I'm not just going to go up and say hi to Brian Kilmeade. Why not? There's an orderly process that happens where people end up making a line. And then he just kind of sits at. He was at the bar last time just facing sideways. So his left elbow was on the bar and his right arm was kind of facing you. And there was a line of people that just came up and they're like, hey, been watching you on Fox News for years. I didn't even know you were on KLIF until, a couple months ago, but I love your show. And that's about it. And then they would move on. It works out like that. So come on out February 26th. The event is from 6 to 8, but if you show up a little late, no one's going to mind. You just might not be able to find a seat. I was one of the suckers standing up on the back wall last time because I didn't get there because the James Show doesn't get off the air till 5. So I'll be there. I think Garrett's going to be there. Clayton, yep. Oh, it's confirmed. Garrett will be there. And then Clayton and Sybil from the morning show over at KLIF will be there as well. And Miss Parker. I know Miss Parker, who y'all really care about. So before we get into the latest audio cuts kind of spelling out what DOGE is doing next, I went and did some research for you. There's been a lot of concern about what's going on with DOGE, with Elon and his team of nerds going through the Geek Squad or whatever they were called, Big Balls and all those friends, that this was considered, look out, it's a constitutional crisis, y'all. The Constitution is at stake, I guess. I mean, anyway, if you haven't heard that, here's sort of the summary.
New warnings of a constitutional crisis just weeks into Trump's second term.
And the stage is set for a constitutional crisis.
Could this signal the start of a constitutional crisis?
Legal experts say our country could be headed toward a constitutional crisis.
They're calling this a constitutional crisis.
This is a constitutional crisis.
I am unapologetic in suggesting we are in a constitutional crisis right now.
Are we already in a constitutional crisis?
Those two words, right? Constitutional crisis.
Well, if they think people going in to audit the spending and make more transparent and expose to the public where their dollars are going, I think you'd be interested in hearing a little sentence here. Well, it's got a semicolon in it, so it's kind of a compound sentence. From Article 1, Section 9 of some rag called the U.S. Constitution. It says, no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, semicolon, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. So not only is it constitutional, it's kind of required by the Constitution. Not only are you running afoul of the Constitution if you dig into the books and start plastering all over Twitter and Facebook what all is going on. The Constitution tells you this is what you need to be doing. And it doesn't give you a specific time frame. It just says all expenditures of public money should be published from time to time. So what are they really complaining about? It's not the Constitution. It's something else. Now, Elon was at CPAC yesterday, and he was asked a pretty interesting question. When did you change? This is a guy who leaned Democrat his entire life until recently. And for a lot of people, there's sort of a conversion moment, like a Saul on the road to Damascus moment. And for him, I mean, he was kind of vague about it, but I'm always interested in these stories.
Was there a specific moment? Was there a moment that it all changed?
Yeah, when I realized I was a fool. But no, I was, I guess, yeah, I mean, I'd say I was politically neutral for quite a while. Leaning a little Democrat.
How do you go from that to this?
Yeah,
How does that happen?
Well,
did they go crazy?
Yeah, they did go crazy.
Yeah, they went crazy.
No, I mean that whole cancel culture and it's trying to stop freedom of speech and infringe upon people's personal freedoms. They just want state control of what you say. They want to take away your guns. and the reason I want to take away your guns, so like there's nothing you do to oppose them. So it's sort of like, I just like we just need to restore the fundamental elements of what made America great, which is freedom and opportunity.
All right, so whenever you hear someone give the reason why they went from Team Blue to Team Red, they never say, well, racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, white supremacy, neo-Nazism, I want a oppressive patriarchy, or I want to oppress people in the letter groups, or any of that. There's quite often just fundamental policy differences. He didn't like the cancel culture. He didn't like their take on free speech. He doesn't like their take on guns. He doesn't like a lot of their economic takes. He doesn't like how spendthrift they are in the federal government. These are all significant, legit policy complaints where he differs with the Democrats with no animus. It's not like he hates people who are okay with an unbalanced budget. It's not like he hates people who disagree with him on some of these fiscal issues or even vice issues. But that's not how it's played in the media. Well, the only reason you support Donald Trump's because you're a sexist, racist, bigot, homophobe, or you don't know what's going on, or you're a dupe, or you're hateful, or you don't have any empathy, or you hate the poor, or you hate minorities of some sort. And that's never anyone's excuse for joining Team Red. It's just those are the excuses that are put upon them. But Elon was asked on the stage at CPAC, about the media bias, and he questions if it's even real, that whole narrative.
I can't believe how bad they are at responding to this. I don't know how you're going to sit there and scream and complain because they're cutting waste out of the government and try to win another election. How do you try to win on that?
Well, at this point, I'm not sure how much of the left is even real.
Yeah. How much was propped up by our money?
Yeah. Like literally, you see like these sort of fake rallies where there's like hardly any people, and the media will like frame it and like get all 6 people in the frame, but it's like nobody else is there. Like just it doesn't have popular support. But then you learn that like there's hundreds of billions of dollars going to these so-called NGOs. And it's your tax dollars that are funding things that are fundamentally anti-American.
And there's a micro version of that going on in Texas right now. Lawmaker here in the state of Texas, State Rep Briscoe Cain, has a report he put out in the House that shows that the publications that are most funded by the legislators' offices and look, what they usually do is buy subscriptions, but all you do is buy subscriptions over and over and over. And instead of giving these media outlets $1 million or $10,000, you just buy a bunch of subscriptions. And look, it doesn't cost the media outlet anymore to get these subscriptions. There's no real noticeable difference than you just giving them the money than air quotes buying subscriptions. They don't even have to print extra papers. They don't even incur a cost. You're not even using the bandwidth that's usually associated with subscriptions. But when you look at the top 10 publications most funded here in Texas by your tax dollars going through DC, Quorum Report, Dallas Morning News, Houston Chronicle, Texas State Directory, Capitol Inside, San Antonio Express News, The Texan, Fort Worth Star Telegram, Texas Tribune. How come most of these outlets are decidedly against you in their narrative? Isn't that weird how you're funding the political opposition? Is there even really a political opposition if they have to be funded and supported? Gives me a lot to think about. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, gas prices have ticked up a little bit. How high is it going to go? We'll ask R.T. Trevino from The Crude Truth next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Boy, we've got ourselves in a weird spot here. I am in a position here on the DOGE checks where we talked about this for a long time yesterday, and it was a great discussion. It was an intellectual discussion. It wasn't emotional. People weren't getting butthurt. We were just kind of having a chat about these DOGE checks and whether or not we think it's a good idea. So Elon Musk was asked about it at CPAC yesterday, and of course he sounded sort of deferential to the idea.
Let's talk about these DOGE dividend checks that everybody's talking about this week. And I know you tweeted out that you're going to... Does everybody want like a $5,000 check in the mail? It sounds kind of good, right? And the best part about it would be knowing where it came from. That's $5,000 that you sent them last year.
Totally. It's money that's taken away from things that are destructive to the country and from organizations that hate you to you. That's awesome.
Does it seem? I mean, have you talked?
I mean, that's like glorious. That's like it's the best. The spoils of battle, you know.
All right. Well, I wasn't so happy about the DOGE checks. I remember what happened when we got the air quotes free money during COVID. You and I experienced together the inflation that happened afterwards. And that seems to be, philosophically speaking, what we kind of believe on paper when you read the textbooks. You just print a bunch of money and you throw it in the system. Well, of course, it'll be nice for a few months, but you will far, far pay more in the inflation that you have to endure for the rest of your life than that little check that you got. And then I turned around, and yesterday, this wasn't on The View, this was when she was on ABC, wasn't it? Jasmine Crockett agrees with me over Elon Musk.
This is something that is going to be on the Trump administration, and I'm just bracing right now.
Now, President Trump says he likes the idea of giving some of the savings from DOGE back to Americans as kind of a dividend. Would you support that?
Listen, he's just telling a lie. He's not the one that had anything to do with the $1,200 refunds that people had during the midst of COVID that was done by a Democratic House and Democratic Senate. Right now, what they're going to do is say, hey, we want to give you a refund, but Congress won't let us, because they already know that there's just no money for that. The only reason that those refunds came before was because we were living in different times. This was a time in which hopefully we won't ever go through again. We had a once in a lifetime pandemic. The bad part is that I don't know if it's once in a lifetime, because we know that Ebola, unfortunately, was detected right here in New York here recently. And if we continue down this road of getting rid of scientists or deciding that we don't want to rely on experts as it relates to what they're telling us to do, or we don't want to deal with vaccines and medicine in this country, then we may be facing not only our next pandemic, but our next 2, 3, or 4 pandemics because of their incompetence. So no, we are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you if you are unable to find a job, because I am telling people we are headed towards a recession.
Uh-oh. Now, our reasoning's quite a bit different there, but we have run into an interesting situation here. I agree with Jasmine Crockett, and I disagree with Elon Musk. And again, I know that there's a lot of nuance to be had there, and she wasn't using the same economic rationale. She wasn't bringing up the inflation and whatnot. But a lot of people were focusing on that sentence. She said, I don't know, $5,000 is going to make a big difference. And there's a legit criticism for that if it happened in a vacuum. But it doesn't sound that much different than what I was saying. No matter what the check is, if you get a $5,000 check, but you have to go through 30% inflation, you're losing. The average household brings in, let's just say $100,000 a year. Between you and your wife, do y'all bring in $100,000 a year? What about you? Do you bring in $100,000 a year? If you bring in $100,000, 30% inflation means you lose the spending power of $30,000. Not just this year, but you lose it again next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. And so the increase in inflation is going to cost you about $100,000. And is that $5,000 check worth it? Well, mathematically speaking, no. Pragmatically speaking, no. Technically speaking, no. Economically speaking, no. Yeah, it would be nice right now, but that's the same sort of impulse control problems that people have that lead to so many other problems. Yeah, if you just want to be happy now, why don't you go smoke some crack? Why don't you just eat a whole bunch of candy? Why don't you just drink, sugary sodas and junk food? And because there's consequences later. There's no free lunches here, and there's no free money. You will pay for free money. 800-288-9227. Isn't that crazy, though? How on some of these issues, I just sort of agreed with Jasmine Crockett more than Elon Musk. I think you might like this other idea, though. Elon Musk floated the idea of shutting down the IRS.
I think they fired 6,000 people at the IRS today. Yeah. And I think Lutnick said last night that they're talking about shutting down the IRS. I think it's fair. I think people should realize this is, the amount of money that we send Washington, like $5 or $6 trillion a year. That is such an ungodly amount of money. What do they say? They say like 1 trillion seconds is like 30 years or something like that. That's how much we send them, and they seem to never have enough. There must be a lot you can cut.
No, absolutely. People ask me, what's the most surprising thing that you've encountered when you go to D.C., when you're in D.C.? And I said, well, the most surprising thing is the scale of the expenditures and actually how easy it is to, when you add caring and competence where it was absent before, you can actually save billions of dollars, sometimes in an hour.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild.
Ooh, those are big numbers. All right, coming up next, Elsa Kurt. You remember that name? She was Blonde Kamala, the nation's leading Kamala comedian impersonator. And when she comes on after the news here, we're going to ask her the same things I'm asking you right now. Should we get a DOGE check? Should we get rid of the IRS? Could we get rid of the IRS? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Blonde Kamala / Elsa Kurt next. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Happy Friday. I know it's a little cold. It'll be close to normal tomorrow, and it'll be back to normal for sure on Monday. Joining me is one of my favorite guests, Elsa Kurt. You knew her as Blonde Kamala during the election cycle, but now we have retired the Blonde Kamala persona, and now she's just little old Elsa Kurt from the Elsa Kurt Show. Welcome back, Elsa.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. I like when you call me little. I don't like the old, but I like the little, so thank you.
Well, you do look kind of short.
I am short. I am actually short. I own it. It's true. It's true.
So your thoughts on the job DOGE is doing just far?
Well, listen, I'm sure you could easily guess how ecstatic I am over all of it. And I don't know what I love more, whether it's everything that they're doing or the extent of the pearl clutching from the left about what
it's a constitutional crisis, Elsa.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Newsflash, guys. No, it's not. And furthermore, they're doing exactly what they said they would do. And I know nobody is used to the government doing what they say they're going to do. But there was no secrecy. In fact, the complete opposite. This has been as transparent as we've ever seen in any type of government capacity. And, the simple fact is the people that are clutching those proverbial pearls are either guilty or they're stupid or they're technically both.
They just don't know anything other than whatever Trump is doing, it's going to be reported as bad. It's going to be framed as bad. It's just orange man bad. We got it.
Orange man bad. Yeah, it's that good old TDS, and now we have EDS along with it, some good old Elon derangement syndrome happening. And, I think that's the bigger irony, isn't it? The bigger hypocrisy, because he was their darling. They loved him until they didn't.
Well, and also, it's the one immigrant they don't support. The other part that we did actually have some gray area on yesterday in the James Show. A lot of callers disagreed with me about the idea of getting a $5,000 DOGE check. Now, I mean, it'd be nice to get $5,000 out of the sky, but I don't want to have to pay for it later with the rampant inflation and whatever. I think it would be more bad than good. Where does Elsa Kurt stand on a $5,000 DOGE dividend?
I tell you, I'm a pretty simple girl. I got to be honest with you. And when I first saw it, my first thought was, "Oh, that sounds great. We'll take that." And I think that's everybody's first thought, right? And I posed the same question you did to my viewers, I guess, followers, whatever you want to call it. And there was a lot of division in there, so that put me in a little bit of a quandary there. So I'm not sure. That would be great, but I guess ideally we want to overall pay less, give away less of our money, as little as we need to. I think we all want to contribute to take care of our country, the infrastructure, the roads, all of the things. We just want it to be fair and reasonable and not get gutted. So I'm kind of good with just waiting it out and see what they decide to do. It'll be very interesting.
All right. Now, I don't know if you heard it or not, but I'm going to assume the people listening to us did not. Pam Bondi earlier today said that she's our new attorney general. She was asked about the Epstein client list. Elsa, you hear this along with our listeners real quick. I'm going to play it for them.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay.
Elsa, are we going to see the Epstein list finally after all this time?
I don't want to give an absolute because we can't ever, But I tend to think, yes. All I know is that I have my popcorn ready. I am ready with the popcorn to just watch them all start fleeing the country. And this is long overdue. This is something that should have been done, as we well know, quite some time ago. And I truly hope that this happens. And I almost feel bad for the people that are going to be shocked. And I think when Pam Bondi said that she wasn't especially surprised, I think it's because none of the names on there were a surprise to her. All things, and I think the people on the right are going to say the same thing when they see those names. It's going to be kind of like yeah, well, I could have told you so, or I did tell you so.
Well,
the left,
we all feel really strongly about this, but unlike the cuts that are happening in government, or whether or not we get a DOGE check, or whether or not the tax cuts expire, whether those things directly affect us. This doesn't directly affect any of us, but I'll be damned if I just don't want this to happen just for the sheer, intangible of justice.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I tell you, that's what I think we've all been wanting all along. We want accountability. We don't want, retribution, unlike what the left is telling everyone that, we want revenge and retribution and all of these things. No, we want accountability. We want justice. We want truth. We want transparency. We want all of the things that is normal to want from your government. And, that they're balking at all of this, just it says everything you need to know about them, right?
All right, so tell the guy why he needs to listen to the Elsa Kurt Show.
Because it's so fun. No, we have a great time on there. It's the Elsa Kurt Show. It's Thursday nights at 9 p.m. And of course, as you well know, I'm making the content every day, trying to be as funny as the Kamala days. But I don't know. I can't judge that.
Are you doing any
ElsaKurt.com?
You doing any stand up yet?
Nah. I'm so comfy. I'm so comfy in my little life. I'm not saying I'll turn it down, but I'm not seeking it out.
You can write.
Kamala
10
may
minutes.
be giving me more work. Kamala may be. There's a gubernatorial run she's talking about, and they're floating her and AOC for a presidential run. So maybe she's not fully retired yet.
Please run that ticket. I mean, how good can life get, Elsa? They're going to run Kamala with AOC. Oh my goodness. That'd just be like another Christmas. All right, there she is, the great Elsa Kurt from the Elsa Kurt Show, formerly Blonde Kamala. Good to hear you get on the James Show. Don't be a stranger.
Thank you.
800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Your response to your new Attorney General, Pam Bondi, saying we may be getting the Epstein list. Do you think we're going to get it? Do you really think we're going to get it after all this time? You think we're going to get the JFK files, the MLK files, the RFK files? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Jasmine Crockett was on The View yesterday. Did you see it? This woman is going places. I don't care if you like her or not. Just this week, this lady's been on, I think, MSNBC twice. She was on The View. She was on ABC News. And she's done a couple of events that were on social media, like a podcast and the event that she had for illegal immigrants here. What was that? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, somewhere around there. I remember I talked about it on Monday's show. Now, you can come up with your different theories on why she is getting all this media attention, but she is a rising star. For someone who's only been in there, this is her, third year in D.C. I can explain some of this. Number one, whether you like it or not, a lot of it is just based on her looks. She's very pretty, and that shouldn't matter, and that shouldn't help, and we shouldn't think of such things. And you and I, we normally don't. But you got to admit, that definitely helps. And this isn't like a misogyny sort of thing. AOC wouldn't get nearly as much attention. Ilhan Omar wouldn't get nearly as much attention. Jasmine Crockett wouldn't get nearly as much attention if they didn't look the way they looked. But also, that applies to guys. When's the last time we had a bald president? Oh, you didn't think about that, did you? When's the last time we had a really fat guy be the president? Howard Taft. I mean, look, before TV came around, looks weren't as important. Before photography came around, looks meant almost nothing. But this is the real world. When's the last time we had a president with a beard? So looks shouldn't matter. But when you look at just the base of history, it does matter. Here's a couple other things she has going for her. Number two, she's really good as a guest on these shows. Her delivery's good. She doesn't talk like a dork like Chuck Schumer, like, well, it has been my experience that over the last... Shut up. You're boring me, and you didn't even get through one sentence. but she also says incendiary things. She goes out and she doesn't mealy mouth halfway her opinions. She just goes full bore. And I'm not too concerned about her rise, because something else I see in her, the same thing that a lot of us saw when Joe Rogan, started his intellectual journey, and Russell Brand and Ricky Gervais and Elon Musk, even. It's people who started off as a Democrat, but the more involved they got and the deeper they dug, the more they moved toward our side. I wouldn't be too surprised if in 20 years Jasmine Crockett's not on Team Red. It might just take 10 years. But I don't think she's beyond reason. Rosie O'Donnell, you're never going to convince her. Keith Olbermann, you're never going to convince him. So many of these other people, I wouldn't waste your time on. I see a glimmer of hope with Jasmine Crockett. And if she does turn, she would be huge, because she is so good at the media. She's good at interviews. She's good at articulating her side of the debate in the public sphere. And she looks good doing it. But she did something that is just a regular pattern here. Trashing Republicans now. And instead of, wanting to sound like, oh, you just trash all Republicans, you hate all Republicans at all time, you throw back, no, this is a bad Republican. I wish we had one of those good Republicans like Bush back in the day.
And I know earlier y'all were talking about bring back the Bushes. I'm with you, honey. Like, listen, I mean,
it was some sense of normalcy, democratic norms.
Yes. See, back in the Bush days, that's when it was normal. This is crazy. Well, no, that's not what y'all were saying back in the Bush days. This is what y'all do with every Republican president I've had in my life. When I was a little kid, I remember y'all cussing Reagan, talking about, man, can't we just go back to something normal? The reasonable Republican like an Eisenhower or something. No, yeah, they were trashing Reagan. And then when it got to George W. Bush, he was crazy, a monster, the R word. If only we could get back to nice civil people like Ronald Reagan. No, it's a moving goalpost thing. I'll play some of the goalpost of Republican hate past coming up on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Going through the email here, Shelly asked, I was listening to today and a doctor on your program was talking about vitamin D3. I couldn't remember his name. Love your show. Keep up the good fight. God bless. Shelly. That was Chalmers. Dr. Matt Chalmers. You can find him at chalmerswellness.com, CHALMERS. Don't ever hesitate to send me an email on a question like that. I love connecting you people. So, yeah. And if Shelly was thinking that, there might be other people who were wondering who that doctor was. There you go. And then I had another good question from Russell, who was asking about the DOGE checks. Am I wrong to look at this as redistribution because the money was already taken from the American pocket and it's not having to be printed? It already existed, so inflation wouldn't occur. You would just redistribute it back to the American people instead of the organizations it was budgeted for. No, it's still inflationary because it wasn't taken from you. They've already taken all the money from you, spent it, and this was going to be printed money that was going to be deficit spending. So it would still be inflationary if they had to print that money. And it would be inflationary, even if they gave it back to you instead of another organization. I mean, it would work out better for you, but they would still cause inflation for everybody else. So good questions. James at WBAP.com. If you have any more questions. Doug says, brother, Jay Crockett is a hack. Yes, she's a hack now, but I see potential in her that she could possibly change teams because she's not wedded to opposing us and what we actually are. She doesn't come in and say, well, all these cuts and waste to government are bad. She says you're racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. If she ever finds out we're not racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, then what's her argument against this? It's not economic. It's not statecraft. It's not the policy positions in which we think would match the Constitution better and the intent of the Founding Fathers. Once she finds out we're not terrible people, she has a good chance to do what Elon Musk did, what Joe Rogan did, what Russell Brand did, what RFK did, what Tulsi Gabbard did. I think she may be that wing of Team Blue, the wing that ends up working with you at some point. So I'm not gonna bust her up too hard, but I will push back against what she said on The View yesterday. Bring back Bush.
And I know earlier y'all were talking about bring back the Bushes. I'm with you, honey. Like, listen, I mean, it
was some sense of normalcy, democratic norms.
All right. For the younger people, that may make sense to you. For the older people, we have heard them say this about every Republican president of our lifetime. This guy's evil, fascist, racist, sexist, bigot. Unlike the last guy who was at least, well, I didn't like him, but he was at least civil. He was at least on planet Earth or not a Klansman or whatever. So let's go back. Well, bring back Bush. Well, what were they saying about Bush back then? And when I say they, I got a wide swath here in the montage.
Is America ready for a black president? Well, we should be. We just had a retarded one.
And then there's the other side. You people that love Bush so much that you can't see beyond the fact that he's a little, retarded.
I know America to be a forward-thinking country, right? Because otherwise, would you have let that retarded cowboy fella be president for 8 years? We were very impressed. We thought it was nice of you to let him have a go, because in England, George Bush wouldn't be trusted with a pair of scissors.
Yeah, that's Russell Brand. See how far he's come in the last 17 years? He's now an overt Christian convert saying nice things about Trump. Isn't that amazing? But James, that's just a bunch of celebrities saying things, trying to get a rise. Fine. I'll go get the biggest MSNBC host at the time. What was he saying about Bush? Keith Olbermann.
Last piece of advice. When somebody asks you, sir, about Democrats who must now pull this country back from the abyss you have placed us at. When somebody asks you, sir, about the cooked books and faked threats you foisted on a sincere and frightened nation. When somebody asks you, sir, about your gallant, noble, self-abnegating sacrifice of your golf game so as to soothe the families of the war dead. This advice, Mr. Bush, shut the hell up.
So if they hated him that bad, why are they acting like they like him now or he was decent now? Well, because they're trying to escape the criticism that they're just Team Blue and everything that ever happens on Team Red is bad. They want you to think their criticism of Trump, even though they're saying the same things about him, that this is somehow different. It's not. When Bush was in power, they were saying, well, at least we could have Reagan back. We didn't like him, but he was civil. No, here's what you were saying about Ronald Reagan in the 80s. Bill Hicks.
Why is it always good guys are murdered? John Lennon murdered, John Kennedy murdered. Why is it good guys are murdered? Mediocre hacks live on forever. Martin Luther King murdered. Gandhi murdered. Jesus murdered. Reagan shot, wounded, cancer 8 times. That still walks. This guy's like Jason at this point, man. I'm back.
Yeah, so you know why they do this? Because every time they come out there, they say the same horrible things. But if that's what they say about everybody, then it doesn't mean anything. So they have to try and convince you. They have to go change the past real quick. Like, no, we at least like the previous guy. But don't worry, the next guy that comes along, he's going to be even worse. And they'll pine for the days. Well, at least Trump was civil, unlike this guy who's totally off the handle. No, these ad hominem attacks are shallow, and they mean absolutely nothing when put in the proper context. Your insults mean nothing to me. That's what you say about everybody from Team Red. Now, do you actually have a problem with our preferred policy prescriptions? All right, that's going to do it for the James Show. Thank you very much for hanging out with me today. Go have a good weekend. If you need more James Show action, check out the podcasts wherever you're already listening to podcasts. I got a date night tonight with Miss Parker. We're going to go to a fine restaurant, and I get to say the fun line where,
Hi, Miss Parker.
Yes, would you like something to drink, sir? Yes, I'll have a glass of your finest Dr. Pepper. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.